champ now. Yes, I didn't say. What are you looking so sad about, champ?
I'm surprised. I mean, I'm really insulted. That's not right, what you just said.
What do you mean, what I just said?
I mean, I'm getting a drink of water. I'm late getting home, but you talk. I said something about the greatest heavyweight champ, man. I'm a hometown man, and you talking about Joe Louis, man. Joe Louis wouldn't be nothing for me. Joe, I tell you, Joe, do you think you would have stood a chance with me?
Well, Clay, one time during my career, I went on a Formula One tour.
I would have been a bum compared to you.
Well, you don't.
What's happening, my people? It's Cast Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. That's right. You know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Boxtorian, bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it. Can't get enough of it. Miss Cass, Thomas Hill, Mike Rim. Salute to everyone and welcome to another episode of Cass Sports, the Boxtorian. Today, should these fighters be in the Hall of Fame? How's the family today? It's Tuesday, still early in this week of boxing history. We got 4 more big days of boxing history coming up. We're going to talk about some fighters that's not in the Hall of Fame today. And we're going to go over there what they achieved during their careers, and y'all decide whether they belong in there or not, okay? Some of them are back in the day. You might not have heard of some of them, but just focus on their achievements during their careers and see. I think all of these guys should have been in the Hall of Fame. I don't know what the criteria is, but they must not have no criteria. They just pick who they want. You know, like I said yesterday, International Boxing Hall of Fame is a complete joke. Okay, so for the highlights of boxing history today, we're going to look at Rocky Marciano. we're going to see just how small and undersized of a heavyweight he really was. So the highlights of boxing history will focus on The Rock, Rocky Marciano. But how's everybody today? Everybody enjoying their Tuesday? Welcome to the Tuesday afternoon edition of Cast Sports, The Box Story. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Rocky Marciano. There he is. Very undersized heavyweight. They didn't have cruiserweight, then Rocky would have definitely been a cruiserweight. He fought some of his fights close to light heavyweight. 175 that he did heavyweight. Technique. What's up, Technique? How are you? We're going to talk about doing the show some fighters that didn't make the Hall of Fame, but had Hall of Fame type credentials. But first, let's talk a little bit about Rocky Marciano. Now, Rocky Marciano had 49 fights during his professional career. 33 out of those 49 fights, he was the smaller man, okay? Now, 6 times his opponents outweighed him by 20 pounds or more. Now, it's easier to list the 16 times out of the 49 that Rocky was heavier than it is to list the times that 33 times that his opponents were heavier than Rocky. Now, in his entire career of 49 fights, like I said, Rocky only outweighed his opponent 16 times. Against Joe Edwards, Rocky outweighed Joe by 12 3/4 pounds. Against Harry Belarusian by 10 pounds. Rocky outweighed Larry Half by 9 3/4 pounds. He outweighed Eddie Ross by 9 pounds. Outweighed the great light heavyweight Harry Matthews by 8 pounds. Harry was actually a light heavyweight. Outweighed Harold Mitchell by 5.5 pounds. Outweighed Ted Lowry by 5 1/4 pounds. Outweighed Bob Jefferson by 6 pounds. Outweighed Phil Moscato by 3 pounds. He outweighed Art Henry by 2 1/4 pounds. And he outweighed Ezra Charles in their first fight by 2 pounds. Ezra was almost like a middleweight. And Rocky still only outweighed him by 2 pounds. And he outweighed Jimmy Evans by just 2 pounds. Bernie Reynolds by a single pound. Roland LaStarza in their second fight by just 1/4 pound. And finally, Archie Moore by just 1/4 pound. And Archie was really a light heavyweight, okay? Now, for those who think Rocky never fought a big man, they are just plain wrong, okay? Bruce Gass. What's up, Bruce Gass? Yeah, it was a small era for heavyweights, Bruce Gass. And Rocky was still outweighed by 33 of his 49 opponents. So salute, Bruce Gass. Good point. Now, for those who think Rocky never fought a big man, they are wrong. He was outweighed by at least 20 pounds in 6 of his fights. Humphrey Jackson outweighed Rocky by 71 pounds. Humphrey came in at 254, okay? Rocky was just 183 for that one. He was outweighed by Big Bill Wilson by 39 pounds. Big Bill came in at 230. Johnny Shakur outweighed Rocky by 30 pounds at 220.5. Joe Louis outweighed Rocky by 29.5 pounds. Joe was at 213. Bill Hardiman outweighed Rocky by 24 pounds at 206. Okay, Rocky was just 182 for that one. Gillian Ferran outweighed Rocky by 20 pounds at 198. Rocky came in that fight at 178, just 3 pounds above the light heavyweight limit. Okay, could have very easily made light heavyweight. Now, Rocky was used to being the smaller man in the ring. But as his trainer, the great Charlie Goldman said, Rocky might be the smaller man in the ring, but he didn't have the smaller punches, okay? Now, in his 49 fights, Rocky fought at or above 190 just 4 times, okay? In his debut, March 17th, 1947, he weighed 192, okay? Against Johnny Shakur on September 18th, 1950, Rocky weighed 190 and a half. Against Bill Wilson on December 18th, 1950, Rocky was 190 and a quarter. And finally, against King Simmons on January 29th, 1951, Rocky weighed his career heaviest, 192 and a half pounds. That's the heaviest he ever fought, against the 200 and a half pound Simmons. Now, the last time Rocky weighed over 190 in his career was against Simmons, January 29th, 1951. To his final fight, almost 5 years later, he never weighed over 190 again. Rocky often weighed under 180 in his career. He weighed more times under 180 than he did over 190. On September 30th, 1948, Rocky weighed 179 against Gilbert Cardone. Gilbert weighed 189. On Crush the Legend. What's up, Crush? How are you today? Let's talk a little bit about Rocky. In a small era, as Bruce Gass pointed out for the heavyweights, Rocky was still small. A couple times he fought just 2 or 3 pounds above the light heavyweight limit of 175. But like his trainer, the great Charlie Goldman, said, he might have been a smaller man, but his punches wasn't small, okay? Like I was saying, October 4th, 1948, Rocky weighed just 178. 3 pounds above the light heavyweight limit against Bob Jefferson. Bob only weighed 172. Now, in Undefeated, Rocky Marciano, the fighter who refused to lose by Everett Skehan, it notes that after the DiGiorgio fight, Charlie Goldman told Rocky he wanted his weight in the 180s to add muscle, to increase his ability to break down his opponents. So Rocky increased his already incredible workouts. Rocky was one of the rare heavyweights whose weight did not increase during his career. Indeed, he dropped weight after 1951 and stayed under 190 for the rest of his career. Okay? Now, what was Rocky's toughest opponent? Who was Rocky's toughest opponent? Okay, in his career. Now, I would say his toughest opponent was by far former undisputed heavyweight champion and Hall of Famer, Ezzard Charles, in their first fight, which went the distance because he stopped Ezzard in the second one. Ezzard was the only man to go the distance with Rocky in a championship fight. And then they had the rematch, and Rocky stopped him in the rematch. But in the first fight, that was probably Rocky's toughest fight against Ezzard Charles. Let's talk about that. Then we're going to get to these guys that should be in the Hall of Fame but are not. Okay, Rocky's toughest opponent, the great Ezzard Charles. Crush the Legend, Bruce Gass. If you're not subscribed to those channels, yeah, get over there and subscribe to them. 2 great channels. Okay, yeah, Ezzard Charles. Now, Rocky Marciano's toughest opponent by far was Ezzard Charles, okay? Now, Charles is thought by many in the boxing community to be one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters who ever lived, and with good reason. The International Boxing Research Organization ranks Ezzard Charles, who was a natural middleweight, who was denied a title shot there or at light heavyweight. Thought to be the greatest light heavyweight of all time, never the champion, okay? And they have him number 1 all time at light heavyweight, number 16 all time at heavyweight. Now that takes nothing from Rocky, whose achievements also put him in the elite of the elite. Now their first fight was one for the ages. Charles was the only fighter who ever went 15 rounds with Rocky Marciano. Now, Charles Marciano won is one of the great heavyweight battles of all time. On June 17th, 1954, Ezzard Charles met Rocky Marciano in a sold-out Yankee Stadium in the Bronx in an attempt to regain the undisputed heavyweight title. Charles lost a 15-round decision, but it was not easy for either man. Okay? Now, the first 4 rounds saw Charles absolutely dominate Rocky, right? Ezzard showed both speed and elusiveness while beating Rocky, especially to the body, and cutting him badly in the 4th round. Rocky simply could not find Charles to hit him back, right? Ezzard was very elusive the first 4 rounds. Ezzard's defense, while not as notable as his offense, was marvelous in this fight, right? As Charlie Burley noted, the great Charlie Burley, he said, Ezzard Charles throws and then he's gone. Countering a guy who isn't there is impossible. Charles, the underdog in the fight, simply boxed beautifully in the opening frames. Then in round 5, Rocky, bleeding profusely from a wide, deep cut over his left eye, began to find the range at last. So from round 5 on, Rocky won most of the rest of the fight, though some rounds were very close, and Charles won a frame or two. The 6th, 10th, and 15th rounds were particularly good rounds for Rocky. Now, Charles became the only man to ever last the distance in a championship fight with Rocky, and the scores showed he made it a fight. Referee Ruby Goldstein, the great Ruby Goldstein, had it. 8 rounds for Rocky, 5 rounds for Charles, 2 a draw. Judge Harold Barnes had it. 8 rounds for Rocky, 6 rounds for Charles, and 1 a draw. And Judge Arthur Adala had it. 9 rounds for Rocky, 5 for Ezzard Charles, 1 a draw. Now, the cut over Rocky's left eye required 10 stitches by Dr. Vincent Nardiello, who also cut away some old scar tissue in his post-fight operation at St. Charles Hospital. Ezzard Charles also required medical attention for his battered face. And Rocky said after the fight, Ezzard gave me a hell of a fight. He deserves a return fight if he wants it. And the rematch was not the classic that the first fight was. Now, they did fight again later that same year, but it was much more of a one-sided beatdown with Rocky stopping the game as a Charles. And this second fight is primarily remembered after Rocky's nose was literally split in half. And at the end of the 7th round, the ring doctor told Marciano he had 1 round before the fight would be stopped. And guess what? In that next round, Rocky stopped Ezzard Charles, okay? 8th round. 7th round, the doctor told Rocky he only had 1 more round to get the stoppage, and he got it in the next round. It was also remembered as the dirtiest Marciano ever fought. Rocky was not big on watching where his nonstop punches went, but it was truly egregious in this fight. Twice Rocky was caught hitting after the bell, and once he was warned for healing Charles. Was Charles suffering from ALS in 1954? The Charles family said that they had begun noticing signs of the horrible degenerative nerve disease, which would first put Ezzard in a wheelchair, then take his speech, then took his life. Given this, Charles' incredible performances against a peak Marciano is all the more amazing. All the more amazing. Okay, the man was suffering from ALS at the time. Now, the first Ezzard Charles fight not only showed Marciano against the best opponent, it showed boxing at its best. 2 all-time greats with 2 completely contrasted skill sets and styles going to war for 15 rounds. Yeah, that was Rocky's. In his 49 fight career, that was definitely his toughest, Ezzard Charles. Okay, so let's start the show with these guys that didn't make the Hall of Fame. Now, a lot of them are back from the old days, but, just listen to their achievements and, see if you think they should deserve to be in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Okay? How's everybody? This Tuesday afternoon. We got Washington State this week for boxing in the States. Mm-hmm. And the profile Friday is Marco Antonio Barrera. We did the other 4 Kings up to 2000s, Manny Pacquiao, Juan Manuel Marquez, and Eric Morales. So we may as well do Barrera Friday this week, the 4 for the 4 Kings. And every combination in those 4, every combination except for I think it was Juan Manuel Marquez and Eric Morales. I don't think they ever fought, but all 4 of those guys had 13 different fights between them. So, when they talk about these 4 Kings at lightweight in the 2020s, there's only been 2 fights between them. Both Ryan Garcia against Devin and Tank. But these, you want to talk about the second set of 4 Kings is Pacquiao, Morales, Barrera, and Marquez. They had 13 fights. Every possible combination except for 1, right? I think it was Eric Morales and Marquez never fought, I think. I know it was every possible combination except for 1. So that's truly 4 Kings. They actually fought each other, right? Did you call somebody 4 Kings when they never fight? As the 4 Kings of the 80s fought each other. With these lightweight 4 Kings, they tiptoe around each other like they terrified. Except for Ryan Garcia. Got to give him credit. He done fought 2 of them. Tank and Devin. That's it. No Tank Devin. No Tank Shakur. No Devin Shakur. What are we doing? Those aren't no 4 Kings. I don't know what they are, but they're not 4 Kings. For sure. But anyway, let's talk about these fighters that didn't get in the hall. That should be. And I could not believe this guy wasn't in there, man. Esteban de Jesus is not in the Hall of Fame. I couldn't believe it. But a double and triple checked, he's not. That's him and Roberto Duran. Only man that beat Roberto Duran in the 70s. Esteban de Jesus. Now, Rafael Herrera deserved Hall of Fame induction, beating fighting legends like Ruben Olivares. Chris Eubanks' impressive boxing career includes wins over Nigel Benn and Joe Kawasaki. He ain't in there. Ponsalek Wanjongkan dominated as a flyweight champion, but faces challenges due to weight class bias. And we talk about him just about every week, remember? Because for the longest time, I couldn't even pronounce his name, and I just butchered it. But he's not in the Hall of Fame. Incredible. Now, most boxers dream of having their careers immortalized through induction into the Hall of Fame. However, boxing's Hall of Fame admission standards are tougher than many other sports. Less than 10% of boxers will make the Hall of Fame. Now, with millions of fighters divided into various weight classes, the criteria are tough. Despite this fact, there are several fighters who have either the longevity or accomplishments to receive induction, but have been passed over. And Esteban retired like 40 years ago, so he's been off the ballot. So yeah, won't make it. But yeah, some of these guys are from back in the day, and some people may not have heard of them, but just listen to the credentials and decide whether they're Hall of Fame worthy. First one is Rafael Herrera. Rafael Herrera. Here's Rafael. Now, Herrera was the lineal bantamweight. He won the lineal bantamweight championship, okay? Lineal champion. Now, his record, 47 wins, 9 losses, 4 draws, 20 KOs. Lineal bantamweight champion. Herrera knocked out Hall of Famer Ruben Olivares in his prime. and Herrera also beat Olivares in the rematch. 2 wins over the best of all time in the weight class should have put Herrera over the top for induction. Herrera also beat Olivares' main rival, Chuco Castillo, and had a great rivalry with another top bantamweight, Rodolfo Martinez. Okay, but he's not in there. Nope, not in. Here's another one. Chris Eubank. Excuse me for one moment. Yeah, Chris Eubank's not in. He's another one I thought he was, but he's not. Do they have any criteria, or they just eeny, meeny, miny, mo? Because, wow. DeJesus, Herrera, and Eubanks should be in there, I would think. But I don't know. Who am I? But yeah, Chris Eubanks not in there. There's Chris. Okay, yeah. Chris Eubank made over 10 defenses of his WBO super middleweight title during his career. 10 of them. Shouldn't that put you in the hall? He was 45 wins, 5 losses, 2 draws, 23 knockouts. Okay, he was a world champion at middleweight and super middleweight. Chris Eubank gave Hall of Famer Joe Calzaghe one of the toughest fights of Calzaghe's career. Yes, he did. Now, confident and borderline arrogant, Chris Eubank is commonly known for getting the better of Nigel Benn during their bitter rivalry. Eubank was undefeated at middleweight before moving up to super middleweight and becoming champion. Eubank finished his career as a cruiserweight and almost defeated top fighter Carl Thompson. Now, while Eubank may have faded down the stretch, that also happened to a few boxers who are currently in the Hall of Fame. When he faded down the stretch, I felt he had already qualified for it, but he's not in there. Is he? Man, I've got to check again. I think Chris Eubank is in there, man. This thing is wrong. Chris Eubank got to be in there. Undefeated at middleweight, champion at super middleweight. I hope Nigel Benn ain't in there if Chris Eubank ain't, but I believe Nigel Benn is. How can that be? He dominated the rivalry with Nigel Benn. How can Nigel Benn be in and Chris Eubank ain't? I have to check that. Poncelek Von John Cam. We talk about him every week. I butcher his name every week. He's not in there. That's him on the right. Okay. Now, he was a dominant flyweight champion, right? He made over, get this, he made over 16 defenses of not the flyweight title, the lineal flyweight title. 16 defenses. Not in the Hall of Fame. How can that be? How can that possibly be? Boxing record. 91 wins, 5 losses, 2 draws, 47 knockouts. Dominant flyweight champion who holds several records in the weight class, right? Made several pound-for-pound lists. Wow. I think I'm wrong. These guys got to be in there, man. I'm going to have to double check this. They got to be in there. Got to be. There are a couple of things working against former lineal flyweight champion Poncelek Wongjongham. There's a reputation that fighters from Thailand had padded records. Yeah, and the knock on it, he fought a lot of his fights in Thailand too. Now, Wongjongham may also suffer from the lack of respect that small fighters receive in general, from those lower weight classes. However, he has a Hall of Fame resume. Wongjongham received pound-for-pound attention during his reign at flyweight. Even though Wongjongham is more of a boxer than a puncher, he also has a couple of the fastest knockout wins in the history of the division. Wow. Not in there, though. Now, here we go. This is amazing here. The great, legendary Esteban DeJesus is not in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Wow. Unbelievable. Now, Esteban de Jesus couldn't control his personal demons outside the ring, but you judged on the Hall of Fame in the ring. It should be anyway. De Jesus was a Hall of Fame level talent. You know, not even arguable. De Jesus was a Hall of Fame level talent, man. Boxing record: 57 wins, 5 losses, 32 knockouts. WBC lightweight champion. De Jesus is the only man to beat Roberto Duran at lightweight. He also knocked out lineal junior welterweight champion Alfonso Frazier. How is he not in the Hall of Fame? Wow. Won't get in either because he's been off the ballot. Now, in addition to a win over the fighter many consider the best ever at lightweight, the Hands of Stone, Esteban de Jesus was also a world champion. De Jesus successfully defended the WBC lightweight title a few times before getting knocked out by Duran in their third fight. He beat Duran in the first fight and he lost the second fight, but he did drop Duran in that one. Now, De Jesus was a talented boxer puncher, but wasted some of his potential due to substance abuse issues and a tragic murder conviction. But that still shouldn't keep him out of the Hall of Fame. No. Michael second to none is not in there. Michael second to none, not in the Hall of Fame. Now, the lineal middleweight and super middleweight champion should be in the Hall of Fame. 2-weight world champion, lineal at middleweight, champion at middleweight and super middleweight, lineal champion at middleweight, should be in the Hall of Fame. Michael second to none. So far, I think everyone I've talked about so far definitely has Hall of Fame credentials. Ain't no doubt about it. Okay. Michael Nunn was a force. The lineal middleweight and super middleweight champions should be in the Hall of Fame. That's worth reading twice. Now, Michael won 58 fights, lost 4. He had 38 knockouts. Lineal middleweight and super middleweight champion. Lineal at middleweight. Now, Nunn knocked out Hall of Famer Donald Curry and beat many of the other top fighters during his era. Michael Nunn's best win was his dominating performance against Hall of Famer Donald Curry, knocking Curry out in the 10th round. Nunn also beat, listen to this, also beat Juan Rodon, Marlon Starling, Iran Barkley, and Sambu Kalambe. A long and rangy southpaw, Nunn's talent has been overshadowed by his lengthy prison sentence for drug trafficking. It should not matter. It's possible Nunn is being punished for his life outside the ring. That's what he is being punished for. And so is, I forgot the other one, Chris Eubank. Yeah, his arrogance and all that. Yeah, they being punished for stuff outside of boxing. Yeah. Okay, next, we go back a ways. Kid Azteca. He was a 3-division champion. The kid was, there he is, 3-division champion. And he fought over 3 decades. His career spans generations. Okay? 193 wins, 49 losses, 11 draws, in the 100 knockout club, 114 knockouts. Okay? That's Hall of Fame credentials right there. What y'all think? That's Hall of Fame credentials. He beat Battling Shaw, the first Mexican world champion. Now, every other fighter with similar longevity to Azteca are in the Hall of Fame. Okay, every one of them. Every one of them. Fighting mostly at welterweight, Kid Azteca was a gatekeeper, fighting Hall of Famers like Seferino Garcia and Coco Kid, as well as world champions like Sammy Anga. While Azteca was never a recognized world champion, he fought the best and pushed them to their limits. In the 100 knockout club, okay? He should be in there. Okay, Joey Archer. Joey Archer. That's Joey on the left. Okay? Now, politics shortened Joey Archer's career. Joey Archer has a strong case for induction into the Hall of Fame. Very strong case. Listen, boxing record, 49 fights, 41 of them wins. 45 wins, 4 losses, 8 knockouts. He was the top middleweight contender. Archer gave Hall of Famer Emma Griffith 2 tough fights and arguably deserved the wins. Possibly could have been robbed. Archer was also Sugar Ray Robinson's final opponent. Okay, Joey Archer, Sugar Ray Robinson's final opponent. Now, top middleweight Joey Archer, one of those great 1950s middleweights. Top middleweight Joey Archer had a great jab and excellent hand speed. Archer stood out in a strong era for middleweights, those 1950s. He beat many top contenders before his breakthrough wins over Hall of Famers Sugar Ray Robinson and the great Dick Tiger. His first fight with middleweight champion and Hall of Famer Emma Griffith was declared a draw. Sugar Ray Robinson, Dick Tiger, Emma Griffith, all in the Hall of Fame. He beat Sugar Ray Robinson, beat Dick Tiger, had a draw with Emma Griffith, all 3 in the Hall of Fame, but he's not. Griffith won the rematch, even though many felt Archer won the fight. Now, Archer losing a fight he clearly thought he won made him lose his desire to fight on. That's what it meant when Paula said politics shortened his career. This guy should definitely be in there. Chippy Larkin. Told you, some of the old fighters, you might not know them, but listen to their credentials, though. Let's focus on their credentials, you know? Chippy Larkin. Chippy Larkin had a tremendous career. Larkin is certainly worthy of being inducted into the Hall of Fame, okay? Certainly worthy of it. 134 wins, just 15 losses, 1 draw, 57 knockouts. Junior welterweight champion. Larkin competed in one of the first televised box fights. Well, that got nothing to do with the Hall of Fame, but he did compete in one of the first televised fights. Larkin also beat welterweight champion Freddie Cochran. Now that has something to do with him being in the Hall of Fame. Junior welterweight champion Chippy Larkin faced several Hall of Famers throughout his career. Henry Armstrong, Billy Graham, the great Ike Williams, Lou Jenkins, and the great Jack Berg. Now, the one flaw against Larkin is that he lost many of those fights. However, Larkin was a special talent. His hand speed and footwork were ahead of his time. If he fought nowadays, he'd be in there. Those things are more recognized nowadays, you know? Okay. Now, this guy was an undisputed champion. Lionel Rose, undisputed. Lionel Rose. Okay, there's Lionel Rose. Okay, anybody coming into the building? Let me see. These numbers are crazy. One tone says 0, the other one says 8. But hey, appreciate everybody that's in here. Let me see. Oh my goodness. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Lionel Rose. Now, Lionel Rose was an undisputed champion, right? He's an Australian sports icon. I know them Australian people are mad about this. His record was 42 wins, 11 losses, 12 knockouts. He was an undisputed bantamweight champion for over 2 years. He beat Hall of Famer the Fighting Geraldo. The former undisputed bantamweight champion, Lionel Rose, defeated many of the top boxers, including Alan Rudkin, Chuco Castillo, and the Fighting Geraldo. Now, Rose suffered a knockout loss to Ruben Olivares, but he certainly did enough to earn a Hall of Fame induction. Yes. Ernesto Marcel. Yeah, I got a few of them. Ernesto Marcel. Not in there. Not in there. There's Ernesto. Now, Ernesto Marcel had special gifts. Now, while perhaps his peak was too short, he still had Hall of Fame talent. Okay. Now, he was 40 wins, 4 losses, 2 draws, 23 knockouts. He retired as the reigning WBA featherweight champion. Beat Hall of Famer, the explosive thin man, Alexis Arguello. Not too many people did that. 3-division world champion Alexis Arguello, that is. Ernesto Marcel faced Hall of Famers, Roberto Duran and Alexis Arguello. Marcel gave those guys and other top fighters fits with his style, constant movement, feints, and rapid combinations. Marcel controversially retired out of nowhere, but he belongs in the Hall of Fame as a pioneer of the featherweight division. He belongs in that pioneer category. And we're going to go over the Hall of Fame in the categories too later on. Okay. Okay. Let's continue with these guys, man. It's just a travesty. Travesty. Every one of them belongs in there, man. I was mad when I saw that damn. Man. Can't think of his name. Esteban de Jesus wasn't in there. I was hot about that. I've still been checking ever since surgery to see if I'm wrong. Because I think he's in there. Got to be. Esteban de Jesus got to be in the Hall of Fame, man. I still think he's in there. But he's not. And he's not getting in there now because he retired way back there, like 40 years ago, and been off the ballot. You know, I don't know how long to keep you on the ballot or however they do it in boxing, but you know, he's not going to make it. Okay. Let's continue. Here's one of the Murderers Row fighters. Well, let's do some honorable mentions first. Jeff Clark, George Chip, Jimmy Clabby. Yeah, all those guys belong in there. Asa Hudkins. Okay, but next on the official list is Eddie Booker, Murderers Row fighter we talked about yesterday. There's Eddie Booker. Wait a minute now. Is that Eddie Booker? Yeah, that's Eddie. Yeah, that's Eddie Booker. One of the famed Murderers Row fighters from the 1940s. Now, if he would have got those title shots he deserved and wasn't ducked so much, he probably would be in there. But that wasn't his fault. Oh, no. It's 3 Murderers Row fighters that are in there. I don't think Booker's one of them. Eddie Booker. Now, he was 65 wins, 5 losses, 8 draws. Okay. In the 1930s and 40s, there were a group of black fighters dubbed the Murderers Row. We talked about them yesterday. They were avoided for the most part because of their skin color. But frankly, they were really avoided because they were just too good. And it was Burley, Marshall, and Williams are in the Hall of Fame. Booker, Chase, Coco Kid, Aaron Wade are not. Now, Booker was a very well-rounded fighter who could mix up on the inside or outmaneuver his opponent from the outside. He defeated the likes of Izzy Genazzo, Lord Marshall, Archie Moore, Perry Matthews, and Holman Williams. 3 of those are Murderers Row fighters because they were so avoided. They had to have tournaments against each other just to make money in boxing, right? Yeah, the Murderers Row fighters. Okay. Next is Willie Joyce. These are just some fighters that belong in the Hall of Fame but are not in there. Unbelievable. And like I said, some of them are old school from back in the day you might not have heard of, but just listen to their credentials, what they accomplished. Willie Joyce. Willie Joyce won 72 fights, lost 21. He had 10 draws. Now, Willie Joyce was a very capable fighter, and it's overshadowed by the great era in which he fought in. Okay. There were 4 great popular black lightweights in the 1940s. There was Ike Williams, Bo Jack, Bob Montgomery, all 3 in the Hall of Fame. And Joyce, he was overshadowed. Now, Joyce is said to be the least great of them, but it's still a travesty he's not in the Hall of Fame. Joyce was known for his wonderful lead jab. He never did win a world title, but he utilized his great talent to defeat many a great fighter. This includes wins over Lou Jenkins, twice. Maxie Fisher, Slugger White, Leo Rodak, John Thomas, Ray Lunny, Pete Leolo, Ike Williams, Darky Wright, Allie Stoltz, Jackie Wilson, Bobby Ruffin, and get this, Harry Armstrong 3 times. That should put him in right there. The great Henry Armstrong 3 times. That should put Willie Joyce in right there, man. Henry Armstrong 3 times. But it doesn't. Okay. Next. This guy was kind of dirty, like, but hey, this still shouldn't have held him out. Old elbows, right? Old elbows McFadden. He still should have got in there. You can tell by his nickname, Elbows. He was good at using those elbows, but still had a Hall of Fame worthy career. Now, Elbows, 150, lost 19, had 27 draws. Nat Fleischer dubbed George Elbows McFadden a champion in any other era, right? Again, the era he fought in probably held him out, okay? But Nat Fleischer, the founder of Ring Magazine, that's big praise. He said Elbows would have been a champion in any other era. And every time I'm on this site, this thing just keeps jumping like freaking crazy, man. It then sent me all the way back the other way. Elbows is way down here. Gee, me Christmas. That just stopped the other day. Now, yeah, Nat Fleischer said he would have been a champion in any other era. And that's all McFadden could ever hope for, because the lightweight era he fought in, the first decade or so of the 20th century, could be the deepest ever. It was here, excuse me for a minute. I'm gonna take Miss Cass' phone out of here, because that thing is like, they blowing it up. You left it in the room. Okay. Yeah. You can have this. Okay. Oh boy. Okay, sorry about that. I'm back. I know y'all kept hearing that phone ring every 5 minutes. Miss Cass went into another room, but she left her phone in here, and that thing was ringing every 5 seconds. Okay, Elbows McFadden, though. Okay. Sorry about that interruption. Yeah. Missing that couple minutes was better than that phone going off every 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah, Elbows McFadden. Yeah, and yeah, because he fought in the lightweight era, probably was the deepest ever. You know, early 20th century. Now, it was headlined by a quartet of great fighters. The immortal Joe Gans, Kid Lavigne, Frank Ern, and Elbows. Okay. And one more of those make the list too. Frank Ern is on here, right? Now, McFadden was never afraid to get dirty, as you can imagine, by his nickname, right? Now, he only ever challenged for a title once in his career, in 1902 against Joe Gans, who could be the greatest lightweight of all time. But McFadden still has plenty of quality wins and accomplishments. In his career, McFadden defeated Kid Lavigne, Wilmington Jack Daly, Patsy Sweeney twice, and holds a knockout win over Joe Yans, the old master. He also shared the ring with Sam Langford. Just fighting Joe Gans and Sam Langford should put anybody in the Hall of Fame. Just fighting those two. McFadden is one of the greatest fighters of all time, and Gans' resume wouldn't look nearly as good without the 4 wins he has over Elbows, okay? Elbows McFadden. He should be in there. Yeah, I told you, Frank Earn is on this list too. He's another one of those great lightweights from that era. The great Frank Earn. There's Frank. Frank Earn. Now, Frank was 31 wins, 6 losses, and 16 draws. Yeah, they had a lot of draws back then. I don't understand that, but they did. Mike Mazik. What's up, Mike? Yeah, I told you today we're going to talk about some of these fighters that's not in there. And I don't know how that's possible. But they not. The travesty. Frank Earn. Okay? Now, Frank Earn's record doesn't jump out at you like others. But with 31 wins, Earn's resume is really quite deep. He fought in what many consider the most talent-rich lightweight division ever, the same one Elbows fought it with Joe Gans, right? This was very early in the 20th century, 1899, 1908, right? It was absolutely full of killers, like a shark tank. And what Earn did below lightweight was also mighty impressive. In 1895, Earn outpointed one of the greatest fighters of all time, George Dixon, for the world featherweight title. Now, Earn would lose the title back to Dixon, and then he moved up to lightweight. Earn defeated every one of the 4 great lightweights that lead the way in the stacked era. All of them in the Hall of Fame except him and Elbows. In under 2 years, he outpointed George Elbows McFadden, right? I told you this. He keeps jumping on me. In under 2 years, he outpointed George Elbows McFadden. He defeated Kid Lavigne. And he had a knockout win over Joe Gans, all in a 2-year stretch. He even challenged Rude Ferns for the welterweight title in 1901 and actually put up a great fight. Earn retired in 1903, but he made a comeback in 1908 and defeated Curly Watson for the welterweight championship of France. Okay? Frank Earn. But he's not in there. It's just crazy. I don't understand it. Next is Jackie Patterson. Just disgusting, man. Jackie Patterson. It's the last one I can get off of this site, because this is crazy. There's Jackie Patterson right there. Last one on this one. Then I moved somewhere else. Jackie Patterson. There's Jackie. Sorry about the small picture. That's all I could find. These guys are way back there. Now, Jackie Patterson was 63 wins, 25 losses, and 3 draws. A lot of losses because they fought a lot of great fighters. All of them had a lot of losses back then. Because everybody fought each other 8, 9, 10 times. The great ones did. Harry Wills and I think Joe Jeanette fought each other 24 times. Okay? 24 times. That's got to be the record for 2 fighters facing each other. 24 times. Wow. Now, Jackie Patterson was a Scottish fighter who carried a destructive punch and won British, European, and world titles at flyweight and bantamweight. He's one of the most underrated boxers of all time, let alone the most underrated flyweight ever, right? He was a massive flyweight and often struggled to make the weight limit. And in his prime, he was an absolute terror in the ring. Now, his record is very deceiving. 10 of his losses came at the very end of his career, and he literally always fought high-level competition. In just his second pro fight, Patterson knocked out future lightweight champion Renty Monahan, who was already a veteran of over 30 fights, and he knocked Renty out in 5 rounds in his second pro fight. In his 16th pro fight, he knocked out the standout flyweight Tur Whaley in 1 round. After that, Patterson knocked out Eric Jones in another 1-round demolition, in what was a title eliminator for the British flyweight title. In Patterson's 19th fight, he continued to feed his craving for knockout victories when he decked and finished the excellent Paddy Ryan in 13 rounds. Now, Patterson, although just a flyweight, was leaving a trail of destruction wherever he laid his tiny fists at. Now, by the time Patterson knocked out Ryan again 2 years later, this time in the 8th round, he was arguably the premier flyweight in the world. But Patterson didn't let up. With the world flyweight title in his sights, he kept swinging, and the brutal knockouts kept coming. And for the next 7 years, he would not lose to another flyweight. His losses during that stretch all came to bantamweights or even featherweights, okay? He defeated Kid Tanner 2 times, once by knockout, Jimmy Stubbs, and Norman Lewis, before being matched up with Peter Kane for the flyweight championship of the world. And Kane is another of history's I told you, keep jumping. Kane is another of history's most underrated flyweights, with a record of 70 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw, and wins over Jackie Jurich, Jimmy Stubbs, Joe Coran twice, Norman Lewis, and Ryan. This wasn't going to be an easy win for Patterson. But then again, it was. On June 19th, 1943, Patterson made the boxing world take note when he flattened Kane in the first round. And Kane was supposed to be Patterson's most dangerous opponent. And Patterson crushed him in 61 seconds, right? And from there, Patterson defeated standouts George Pook, Ronnie Clayton, and even Jim Brady and Theo Medina, respectively, for the European bantamweight title, right? And Commonwealth, European and Commonwealth bantamweight titles. He was putting together a truly legendary resume, and he beat Joe Coran, Theo Medina again, and Johnny King before finally being dethroned as champion in 1948. And this man isn't in the Hall of Fame. Now, the discrepancy Patterson created between him and his contemporaries during his prime is astonishing. Thanks to some otherworldly and nightmare-inducing knockouts and a ravenous hunger for victory, Patterson should be remembered forever. But of course, he's not in there, not in the Hall of Fame. That right there might be the worst or the most deserving one on the list, Patterson. All he did, and Matt Welsh. Matt Welsh should be in there. Got some old school fighters, but just listen to what they did, to their credentials. Patterson should definitely be in there. He was not only beating everybody, he was getting them up out of there. Matt Welsh, 50 wins, 30 losses, 6 draws. Matt Wells. Now, Matt Wells is on a long list of forgotten English champions. During his heyday, he was revered as one of the best lightweights and welterweights. He had outstanding durability and had no trouble fighting long distances. Wells made his pro debut in November 1909, and just 16 fights later, we find himself fighting the Hall of Famer Freddie Welch for the British lightweight title. On February 27, 1911, Wells outpointed the Welsh Wizard over 20 rounds. He beat the great Freddie Welsh, okay? 20 rounder. Just 4 months later, he easily defeated the highly touted Leach Cross, utilizing a stinging left hand that met Cross's face pitilessly, puffing up his lip and nearly swelling both his eyes shut, right? The punishment he inflicted upon Cross was more than he had ever received, said the Indianapolis Star about Cross. And within the next 4 months, and with wins over serviceable men, Philadelphia Pat Moore and Knockout Brown, and featherweight champion Abe Patel, Wells undoubtedly had an even deeper resume than lightweight champion at the time, Ad Walgas. Now, Walgas was a highly protected fighter. Even though he was technically the champion of the world, he had twice lost to Brown, and his only wins of note were battling Nelson 2 times and Owen Moran. And ever since his victories over Welsh and Cross, Wells was the logical opponent for Walgas, right? And in hindsight, Wells was already the best lightweight in the world since defeating Cross in June 1911, as Walgas let it go 0-3 against Welsh, right? And 4-2 against and 0-2 against Cross. 0-5 against those two fighters. But for one reason or another, Wells was never able to fight Walgas for the world lightweight title. Walgas was protected. On March 21st, 1914, Wells would fight Tom McCormick for the world welterweight title and defeated him over 20 rounds. But by late 1915, he was decidedly past his prime, and he would suffer an empty 17 defeats from 1916 until his retirement in 1922. Right? Freddie Wells, out in the Hall of Fame. Okay, got a couple more. Check the chat real quick. Yeah, but this is crazy. These guys definitely have Hall of Fame credentials. No doubt about it. But they aren't in there for whatever reason. None of them are in there. Next is Jimmy Britt, the great Jimmy Britt. After that, we're going to talk a little bit more about Rocky Marciano too. Yeah, the Jimmy Britt is next. Okay. It is Jimmy. Now, though his career was brief, California Jimmy Britt was part of a highly talented generation of fighters inhabiting the lightweight division in the early 20th century. He was in the same era with Joe Gans and Elbows and all of them. In a span of just 21 pro fights, Britt faced the likes of Joe Gans, Terry McGovern, Battling Nelson, Packy McFarland, Young Corbett II, Frank Ern, and Kid Lavigne, all of whom are in the Hall of Fame. Now, in the case of the feared and rugged Nelson, Britt fought him 3 times and emerged the victor twice. Their third fight was a no decision, but the newspapers declared it a draw. Now, Britt twice challenged all-time great Joe Gans for the world title, though he lost both times. And he was inducted into the now defunct Ring Hall of Fame, but not the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Okay, not the big one. He's in the ring. He was in the ring. That's shut down now. Belatulio Gonzalez. Belatulio Gonzalez. There's Belatulio Gonzalez right there. Now, in a career spanning over 20 years, this three-time flyweight champion won his first major belt in 1971 and did not lose his third until 1979. Though he never won the linear world championship, the flyweight division was on fire in the 1970s. He was a three-time champion. In that period, Gonzalez defeated the likes of Hall of Famer and all-time great Miguel Cantu, as well as once or future world title holders Soji Oguma twice, Masayo Oba, Gudi Espadas, and Peter Matabula. Okay? Before he retired at age 39. Now, in the process, he racked up 76 pro wins and became a revered sports figure throughout South America. To this day, he remains a cultural icon in his native Venezuela, where fight fans wonder why his name isn't on a plaque in Conestoga. But it's not. Another murderous road fighter, Jack Chase. Jack Chase. Okay, Jack Chase. Here's Jack. Remember that picture from yesterday, right? When he did the murderous row. Jack Chase isn't in the Hall of Fame. Never got a title shot. Remember? Now, if he would have got his title shots like he deserved, he would definitely be in there. Now, some in the sports press dubbed him the Black Murderous Row. You know, a group of dangerous Black American middleweights in the 1940s that no champion wanted any part of. Unofficially barred from the fights and big purses, these feared fighters battled one another repeatedly, right? Some of their names, you know the names, Eddie Booker, Charlie Burley, but Jack Chase's name is not even, some of those people are in the Hall of Fame, but Jack Chase is not, even though he defeated Booker and Marshall twice, right, each. Now, Chase went undefeated in his first 23 pro fights and held the California state middleweight and light heavyweight titles during his 12-year career. On August 2nd, 1943, he scored his most significant win, a unanimous decision win over the legendary Archie Moore. His record also boasts a win over fellow murderous row member Aaron Wade, but he wasn't enough to get him in the Hall of Fame. Never got a title shot. That's what held him out. That right there definitely did it. But I think he still did enough to be in there. Yankee Sullivan. We go way back once again. Yankee Sullivan. Yes, Yankee. Okay. Now, though he is largely forgotten today, there was a time when Irish-born bare-knuckles scrapper Yankee Sullivan was the most famous prize fighter in America. Clever and quick, he made a name for himself by fighting larger men, and he won the English middleweight championship in 1841 with a 19-round win over Hammer Lane before relocating to the U.S., where he became America's first resident boxing star. Sullivan was in his mid-30s and still undefeated when he took on future Hall of Famer Tom Hyer on February 7th, 1849, in the first fight universally recognized as the American Heavyweight Championship. Right? It was called the Great $10,000 Prize Fight. It was a cultural touchstone for generations of Americans, but Sullivan was soundly beaten. 4 years later, outweighed by 21 pounds, and aging Sullivan was boxing rings around 22-year-old Hall of Famer John Morrissey, before he was disqualified in the 37th round of a fight that lasted nearly an hour, and Morrissey was declared heavyweight champion. Sullivan never fought again, and despite his name being synonymous with boxing in his time, he is somehow not in the Hall of Fame. Another murderous old fighter. Just got a couple more. Burt Lytell. Burt Lytell. Okay, there's Burt. Not in the Hall of Fame. The great Burt Lytell. Now, he was a black southpaw who threw punches from every angle and never let up until the final bell. Okay? Now, you can bet boxing's world champions of the 1940s had no incentive to put their belts on the line against Calvin Lytle, better known as Burt Lytell, or more appropriately, the Beast of Stillman's Gym, right? From the moment he walked into a gym for the very first time, put on the gloves for a lark, and embarrassed ex-middleweight title holder Billy Seuss, the biggest names in the sport, ran the other way whenever they saw Lytell's manager, Tiny Patterson, the only black female fight manager of her day. So it was forced to fight often, as frequently as once a week, for meager paydays against the others who found themselves locked out of the contention. The feared Black Murderers Row, with Lytell defeating Coco Kidd, Holman Williams, and Charlie Burley at least once each. There were also wins over Roy Miller, Sam Baruti, and Oakland Billy Smith, and went the distance in 2 competitive fights with the legendary Archie Moore. He shared the ring with Hall of Famers Jake LaMotta and Harold Johnson, packing 102 fights in just 7 years of professional fighting. Through it all, this unjorred warrior was only stopped once, okay, in 107 fights. And that was on cuts, okay? Most observers felt he dominated future middleweight champion LaMotta in their 1945 fight. But in keeping with Lytell's hard luck career, the split decision went the other way. He retired in 1951, not because he wanted to, but because literally nobody would get in the ring with him. Let's hope the Hall of Fame's voters someday do a better job than the judges in the LaMotta fight and do Lytell justice by inducting him. Probably not though, because wow, what is like 80 years that went by now? He haven't gotten there yet, so I don't see any reason why they put him in there now. All this time. Gus Lesnovich, just got a couple more. We're going to touch on Rocky Marciano again too. Okay. Gus Lesnovich. Gus should be in there. Gus Lesnovich. Okay. New Jersey's rugged Gus Lesnovich reigned as light heavyweight champ during World War II, and he was a leading contender in the division for years before that. Now, starting as a middleweight at age 19, he moved up in weight and twice challenged Hall of Famer Billy Conn for the 175-pound crown, going the distance but losing on points both times. Now, after Conn vacated, Gus won the WBA belt with a unanimous decision over Anton Christoforidis in 1941 with NBA then. And he became undisputed champion 3 months later. Now, after service in the U.S. Coast Guard during the World War II, Lesnovich returned to ring action with a hard-fought win over Englishman Freddie Mills in London, winning by 10th round TKO. Now, Lesnovich successfully defended his title 4 times between 1941 and 1948. Then he lost the championship in a rematch with Mills. In his final fight, he unsuccessfully challenged the great Ezzard Charles for the heavyweight title. Now, among the other stars Lesnovich faced in his 15-year career were Freddie Steele, Young Corbett III, Lou Boyard, Bob Olin, Bob Pastor, Jimmy Bibbins, Bruce Woodcock, and the great Joey Maxa. Okay, let's got a couple more for you. Seferino Garcia is not in the Hall of Fame. That's crazy. Seferino Garcia is not in there. Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable, man. Seferino Garcia. Still can't go best Esteban de Jesus. Okay. Now, the number of big names on Seferino Garcia's ledger is truly astounding. Okay. Henry Armstrong, Barney Ross, Young Corbett III, Freddie Steele, Fred Starley, Ken Overland, Lord Marshall, Billy Seuss, Aaron Wade, Anton Christophoridis, Kid Azteca, Steve Berlioz, California Jackie Wilson, Young Peter Jackson, and Baby Joe Gans were the cream of the crop between welterweight and middleweight during the 1930s and 1940s. Win, lose, or draw, he should be in there just from fighting all those names, man. Now, Garcia faced them all, several of them multiple times, and most of them are in the Hall of Fame, and yet Garcia is not. Garcia won more recorded fights, 121, than any other Filipino champion. As hard as it is to believe, when heavyweight legend Joe Louis was at his bone-crushing peak, some consider Garcia the most murderous hitter in the game. Henry Armstrong said the Filipino phenom was the hardest puncher he ever faced. Armstrong said, I saw entire curtains of flame and my head seemed to float into the air and bob up and down like a fishing cork when he hit. Armstrong said have been doing a Garcia uppercut. Now, Garcia lost to Armstrong in their first fight in 1938, and he held him to a draw in their 1940 rematch. He fought Barney Ross on 3 occasions, giving him hell in their 1937 welterweight title fight. On October 2nd, 1939, 14 years into his career, Garcia scored a 7th-round knockout over Hall of Famer Fred Starley to become the only Asian-born middleweight champion of the world in history. Now, though he was inducted into the Ring Hall of Fame and the World Boxing Hall of Fame, both are now defunct, and he is yet to be enshrined in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. So clearly, he more than deserves the honor. So if he was in the Ring and the World Hall of Fame, he should definitely be in the International. That's crazy. That's crazy. And finally, we have Jack Blackburn. Now, Jack Blackburn is actually in the International, but he's in there as a trainer, right? But he should be in there as a fighter too. But he is in there as a trainer. He was Joe Louis's trainer. Now, yes, Jack Blackburn is in the Hall of Fame, but as a non-combatant for his accomplishments as a trainer. He trained the great Joe Louis until his death. Now, the fact that he is excluded as a boxer is a serious injustice. A supremely skilled lightweight in his prime, he was avoided by the division champs for years on end because he was too good and too black. But that didn't keep him from fighting the best in non-title fight. Now, among the men Blackburn faced were pound-for-pound legend Joe Gans, Sam Langford, Harry Grab, and Philadelphia Jack O'Brien. When he first faced Gans in 1903, the old master was the reigning lightweight champion, but the title was not on the line, and Blackburn won the 6th-round no-decision fight by every account. Now, though Sam Langford would eventually become a feared heavyweight contender, a lightweight encounter also in 1903, Blackburn proved himself, although conceding many pounds of weight, to be even more clever and shiftier than Langford, right? He fought Joe Gans and Sam Langford, but Jack Blackburn is not in there. Not in the Hall of Fame. No, Nigel Benn is not in there either. Because I was saying, if Nigel Benn was in there, Chris Eubanks definitely deserves to be in there. But no, Nigel Benn is not in there. Juan Laporte, just some honorable mentions. Nigel Benn, Donald Curry, Abe Goldstein, Juan Laporte, Cone Kingpetch, Kenny Lane, Darius Michaelzewski's not in. Toji Oguma, Vinny Pazienza, wow, Elmer Ray, Lou Salica, Yoshio Shirai, your Marlon Stallings not in. Adonis Stevens, Willie Dixon. No. Antonio Tarver not in the Hall of Fame? No. Meldrick Taylor's not in there. Come on, man. Israel Vasquez? No, this is old. They get, man, no way. I know Antonio Tarver is in there. Let me stop right there. I know Antonio Tarver is in there. Yeah, because he was at the ceremony when Floyd went in. Maybe he was just there. I want to find out very quick. We're going to talk a little bit more about Rocky too. Let me find out if Antonio Tarver is in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I got to know right now. I just put Hall of Fame because he wasn't even around doing the ring in the world, so it's got to be the International. That's the only one left. Oh, we're going to talk about that real quick to the International Boxing Hall of Fame. That's a little history of it. What is it and all that stuff. Okay. Yeah, that's what we're going to do now. Antonio, not in the Hall of Game, the Hall of Fame. Okay, you ready to find out right now. So if I'm not in there, they overpass me. I wouldn't even go to none of the ceremony. Don't say. I don't think so. I don't think he is. Wow. Anybody know? Is Antonio Tarver in it? Let's talk about the Hall of Fame. What is it? A little history of it. The different categories that they have. They got the old timer categories, then they got that broken down into 2 subcategories. Let's talk about it. No, he's not. Okay? Antonio is not in there. Well, damn. No, not in. Antonio Tarver is not in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Wow, he should have been on this list. He was honorable mention. Wow. Let's talk about the Hall of Fame. What is the criteria for getting in there? Huh? Wow. Man. I did not know that. Antonio's not in there. Somebody please tell me he is. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me Antonio Tarver is in there. Okay, the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Okay. Let's talk about that. Real quick. I mean, briefly. I ain't trying to bore y'all to death. That's what the outside of it looks like. Welcome, boxing fan. Anybody ever been there? Next time I get to New York, I'm gonna go there. Okay. Let's talk about the Hall of Fame. Now, the International Boxing Hall of Fame is located in Canastota, New York, right next to exit 34 of the New York State Thruway. Okay. Now, it honors boxers, trainers, and other contributors to the sport worldwide. Inductees are selected on ballots created through screened public nominations by members of the Boxing Writers Association of America, the BWAA. Why them? What do they know? Not much, apparently, for all these guys that's not in there. Now, the International Boxing Hall of Fame started as a 1980s initiative by Ed Brophy and other locals. I think Ed Brophy is still a director. Started by Ed Brophy and other locals to honor Canastota's world boxing champions, Carmen Basilio and Basilio's nephew, Billy Backus. The village of Canastota inaugurated the new museum in 1989, which showcases boxing's rich history. It was the opening of the Oneida Indian Nation's Turning Stone Casino in the nearby city of Verona, New York, in the early 90s. The relationship was developed, whereas various International Boxing Hall of Fame weekend events were hosted at the casino. Today, the International Boxing Hall of Fame is visited by boxing fans from all over the world. Now, an earlier Hall of Fame had been created in 1954 when the Ring Magazine's Boxing Hall of Fame was launched, located at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Now, when that Boxing Hall of Fame was disbanded in 1987, it had a total of 155 inductees. As of November 2018, all but 13 of those 155 have also been inducted to the International Boxing Hall of Fame. All of them should have. Now, beginning in 2020, the International Boxing Hall of Fame began inducting female boxers for the first time since its inception. The International Boxing Hall of Fame is one of two recognized boxing halls of fame, with the other being the World Boxing Hall of Fame, or the WBHF, with the International Boxing Hall of Fame being the more widely recognized institution. Now, ceremonies have been held every second Sunday in June since 1990 to honor inductees, but were postponed in 2020 and 2021 due to COVID-19. Now, events are attended by many former world boxing champions, as well as boxing and Hollywood celebrities. Artist Richard T. Stone has been the official artist of the International Boxing Hall of Fame since 1997, creating portraits of inductees and other works for the hall. Now, eligibility. Eligibility. Now, professional boxers become eligible for election into the International Boxing Hall of Fame 3 years after their retirement. Previously used to be 5 years before 2019. Now, inductees are selected by members of the Boxing Writers Association of America and an international panel of boxing historians who don't know shit, based on criteria in 5 separate categories. Okay, they have the modern category, which is retired boxers whose last fight was no earlier than 1989. Now, prior to a 2014 rule change, the category reflected boxers whose last fight was after 1943, but now it's after 1989. It's the modern category. You had to retire after 1989. Okay, the old timers. Now, until 2014, the rule was boxers whose last fight was no earlier than 1893 and no later than 1942. Now, this category has since changed, similar to the Veterans Committee in Baseball's Hall of Fame. It is now split into 2 categories. Okay, the old timers is in 2 categories. There's the early era of the old timers, boxers who fought from the beginning of the Marquis-Queensberry rules, 1893 up to 1942, and the late era is boxers who fought between 1943 and 1988. After 1988 is the modern category. Now, pioneers, boxers whose last fight was in or prior to 1892. Generally, there are boxers who fought before the Marquis of Queensberry rule. And you can get observers, journalists, historians, writers, and artists, non-participants, people who made contributions to the sport of boxing, apart from their roles as boxers or observers. That would be somebody like me. Okay, that's International Boxing Hall of Fame, and Sylvester Stallone, right? Yeah, that is crazy, man. Wow. Okay. Let me drop the link. If somebody want to come and say what they think about some of these names and some people that's not in there, you know. Please, somebody tell me Antonio Tarver is in there. Please, somebody. Tell me that's not right. I just knew he was. I thought Esteban de Jesus. I thought he was in there. I'm still checking the search and see if Esteban de Jesus is in there. Okay. Still checking that because I don't believe it. There's no way Esteban de Jesus is not in the Hall of Fame. No way. It's no way. Yeah, we got Washington State this week for the boxing in the state. And Marco Antonio Barrera. I don't think I did him before. I did the other 4 kings of the 2000s. Manny Pacquiao, Eric Morales, Juan Manuel Marquez. So we may as well do Barrera. They fought each other 13 different times. I think the only fight was Juan Manuel Marquez and Eric Morales never fought. But all the other combinations of those fighters have met in the ring. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's how you become 4 kings. Fight each other. Okay? Tank, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, Teofimo, the so-called 4 kings. There's only been 2 fights out of the whole combination of the 4. Ryan Garcia versus Tank, Ryan Garcia versus Devin. No Tank versus Devin, no Tank versus Shakur, no Devin versus Shakur. They are not no 4 kings. Please stop calling them that. And when they start fighting each other, we reconsider. As long as they tiptoeing around like they scared of each other, no. You cannot call them 4 kings. Only king out of the bunch is Ryan. He fought 2 of them. He trying to make them 4 kings, but the rest of them won't cooperate. Right? You're talking stuff like the offer was too low, and just fight, man. Just fight. If you're on the other side of the street, cross over the street and fight them. Yeah. Other side of the street. Cross the street. That's the biggest bunch of nonsense I ever heard, the other side of the street. It's a lame ass excuse for not fighting. Well, he's on the other side of the street. Cross the street, then, damn it. Right? Well, if you're scared, say you're scared. But here comes the link. The Washington State is going to be pretty good there. So we only got 4 more states to go. Then we have went to every state in the United States. For the boxing in the States, we've done a little history on them and talked about some boxers from those states. All of them. Got 4 left. Washington State, Wyoming, and 2 other ones. Yeah, and then that'll be it. We got to think of something else then. Yeah. So yeah, we was talking about Rocky Marciano when we started. About, in that era, like Bruce Guest said, up small heavyweights, Rocky was still small, Only fought over 190 pounds just 4 times in his career. And of his 49 fight pro career, 33 of them, he was the smaller man. Okay? I think it was like 6 times he was outweighed by at least 20 pounds. Mm-hmm. Like his trainer, the great Charlie Goldman said, Rocky might have been the smaller man, but his punch wasn't the smaller punch. Okay? That's what his trainer said. His punch wasn't the smaller punch. By a long ways. 43 knockouts. That's 87% knockout ratio. Okay, for Rocky. So let's see. There was something I wanted to talk about. Let me find it. We've got like 30 minutes. It's Tuesday. Tomorrow is hump day. We're getting up to June. Got some big ones in June. Yeah. Got another DB3. I think Shakur and Zapata's in July, right? Keyshawn and who's fighting De Los Santos, right? But why did Rocky Marciano retire? I mean, why was his career so short? Only 8 years, right? He had an 8-year career. Why? I'll tell you. Glad y'all asked. Okay. Thank y'all for the question. Okay, now let's clear up some fantasy first. And Rocky Marciano, a lot of people say he retired because Sonny Liston and Floyd Patterson was coming up with some kind of nonsense like that. Now, Rocky Marciano did not even know who Sonny Liston was when he retired. Period. Rocky did not hear Sonny Liston's name spoken until 1958, 3 years after he retired. He never heard the name Sonny Liston while he was boxing. Rocky retired for 2 reasons. The first being, by far the most important, he hated his manager, who he had discovered was stealing from him. The second and lesser reason, his body was beginning to break down under the fierce demands of the training he had to go through in order to make his style effective, the Swarmer style. You know, same thing with Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier only had 32 fights. That's why that style, that Swarmer style, is demanding. Henry Armstrong fought that Swarmer style. Now, Rocky did not retire because of Sonny Liston or Floyd Patterson. Like I said, he didn't even know who Sonny Liston was. Now, fanboys or folks not conversant with boxing history claim that Rocky retired because of upcoming fighters like Patterson and Liston. But the truth is, Rocky did not even know who Sonny Liston was in 1955 when he retired, right? Sonny Liston was unranked, and Rocky literally did not know who he was. When Rocky retired, Sonny Liston was 14-1. He had lost to a light heavyweight due to a broken jaw from him laughing at the guy during the fight. And Sonny was on his way to prison again. Now, in 1956, there was no mass media. Television was in its infancy, and people depended on radio, newspapers, and magazines for news. Wasn't no internet. You know, like now, something happened, to be a school shooting, you listening to it while it's going on. Then you had to wait till the news came on, 6 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night. You didn't know what was going on in the world until the news came on, right? Now, the only newspapers that Sonny Liston was in when Rocky retired were the Philadelphia papers. And that was only in the back pages because of his trouble with the police, okay? None of the national papers started covering Sonny until he was first ranked during his march to the title, beginning in 1958, 3 years after Rocky's last fight. And according to biographer Everett M. Skehan, that was when Rocky first heard the name Sonny Liston, 3 years after he retired. So he did not retire ducking Sonny Liston or Floyd Patterson. As for Floyd Patterson, Patterson was careful to wait until Rocky retired before attempting a run on the heavyweight title. So it was the other way around. Floyd Patterson was wary of Rocky. Rocky did not retire because of no Floyd Patterson. Floyd was careful to wait until Rocky retired before attempting his run on the heavyweight title, okay? Now, in his book, Victory Over Myself, it says that Cus D'Amato had spoken to Charlie Goodman and was told Rocky was retiring before announcing Floyd was seeking the heavyweight title, okay? Cus D'Amato was very careful with Floyd Patterson. He kept him away from Sonny Liston for years, and he kept him away from Rocky until Rocky retired. He even asked Rocky's trainer about it. And once Rocky's trainer said Rocky, the great Charlie Goodman said Rocky was retiring, then Cus announced Floyd was seeking the heavyweight title, okay? And Cus and Charlie Goldman were friends. How come we never talked to Charlie Goldman all those years when Rocky was actually the champion? Cus never mentioned Floyd Patterson going for a title, okay? So Rocky did not retire because of up-and-coming fighters. So why did he retire? It was the swarming style Rocky used. It had incredible training demand. Okay? Incredible training demand. Let me jump down here. Let me jump down here real quick. We talked about all this other training stuff last week, remember? About Rocky. I'm not going through that again. Yeah, Rocky retired because of incredible. That was one of the reasons. Incredible training command. Okay. Oh boy. Yeah. Now Rocky's body began to break down in 1950. Rocky's body began to break down. That was why one of the reasons he retired. In 1955, he was suffering from constant back pain. His last camp against Archie Moore before his last fight, Rocky cut the sparring and resistance work back because even he could not stand the pain without drugs. And Rocky refused to do any kind of drug, pain medication, any kind of drug. Rocky just straight up refused. So instead of taking drugs to cut down on his back pain, he cut down on his training. Now, Joe Frazier wrote in his autobiography that there reaches a point where your body just won't let you train as you need to for the style he and Rocky used. And Rocky was reaching that point that Joe was talking about, okay? Nonetheless, before he fought Archie Moore, Rocky had not planned to retire after that fight, which he did, but he did not plan on it, okay? Rocky originally planned to fight a couple of more big money fights after Archie Moore and retire a year or two after the Archie Moore fight. Now, Rocky was having back trouble, and he knew that the more he ran, lifted, trained, the worse it was going to get. Now, fighters like us, said Joe Frazier said of Swarmers, don't have a long shelf life. Remember, Joe Frazier only had 32 fights. Ali had 61. Foreman had almost 80. So yeah, and Joe Frazier only had 32. So Rocky figured a couple more and he was done. Then he found out that Rocky was gonna. Now this is why he retired after the Archie Moore fight. He didn't plan on it. This is why. Okay. He found out his manager was stealing from him. Okay. Now, why did Rocky have only 6 title defenses? Why did he turn down $1 million for 2 more fights after the Archie Moore fight? The same reason he refused to make commercials or paid appearances for a year after he retired. Rocky retired supposedly to spend more time with his family, but the real reason was his hatred of his manager. The illiterate but extremely proud Marciano discovered his manager was effectively robbing him. His manager, Al Will, had tricked Rocky into signing a contract that gave Will 50% of Rocky's purses. And that is 50% before any expenses, including trainer Charlie Goldman's cut and training expenses. Wow. His manager taking 50%, and then Rocky got to pay for his training, his trainer, other corner people, doctors, bills, all that stuff come out of his 50%. Wow. So Rocky said after his last fight against Archie Moore, I'm not making him rich anymore. He's not getting another dime. But Rocky was wavering, thinking about coming back, until Will forbid an appearance by Rocky at a charity event given by the Knights of Columbus because Rocky would not be paid a fee. Yeah, this manager wanted anytime Rocky did an appearance, he wanted that 50%. And Rocky was going to make a free charity appearance, and his manager forbade it. Now, when Rocky pointed out it was a charity event, Will told him he would have to pay Will a fee out of his own money. Wow, go in his own pocket. To be told that he, the fiercely proud Catholic, could not support the church without his paying Will a fee, That was what did it. That was the end for Rocky. That was the camel, the straw that broke the camel's back right there. And reinforcing that feeling, in April of 1956, the chief investigator for the California Governor's Special Committee, which at the time was investigating boxing corruption, discovered that promoter Jimmy Murphy had shortchanged Rocky and Don Cockell in the final purses for their title fight. Okay, while having paid $10,000 on the side to Will, while shorting Rocky. Now, while Murray and Will denied the allegations, Rocky was reported to have said, "I don't care what it costs me. I will never fight for this guy again and let him scalp me. Not another penny." Now, when told he was giving up $1 million for a couple more fights, Rocky said, "I don't care. I'm not going to be involved in any fight that Will is involved in." And he never did. Okay. And Rocky also swore he would stop making paid appearances of any kind until his contract with Will ran out. Okay. And he stopped that as well. After his contract with Will expired, Rocky's brother said later that Rocky said, "Now I can do what the hell I want." And he did. So after he retired, he didn't make any kind of public appearances or anything, because if he got paid, that guy Will was getting a part of it. And he's not giving that guy another dime. And he didn't. Now, Rocky is remembered by boxing insiders as a great fighter. Now, Muhammad Ali said of Rocky in The Greatest, my own story, Rocky was quiet, peaceful, humble, not cocky or boastful. He deserves his place as one of the greatest of the great heavyweights. Ali also was impressed with Marciano's toughness and his humble but relentless nature and power, even after all the time he had been retired. Ali said in all later in life that Rocky was even tougher than Joe Frazier, and Ali said, "I didn't believe it was possible for anybody to be tougher than Joe Frazier." Okay? And Sonny Liston said of Rocky, and Sonny Liston didn't give out praise to people lightly. You know, Sonny Liston just about hated everybody. He didn't praise too many people, but Sonny Liston said of Rocky, he said Rocky was a champion. He was never defeated. Sonny Liston said Rocky refused to be defeated, okay? Floyd Patterson, ranked number 15 of all time by BoxRec, and two-time world heavyweight boxing champion, the first two-time heavyweight boxing champion. He wrote in his book, Victory Over Myself, he said, "I hope time treats me as well as it should Rocky Marciano. He fought everyone out there, and he beat them all. He was humble, decent, kind, and everything a true champion should be. I hope history remembers me the same way." Floyd Patterson. Yeah, Rocky Marciano. Great champion. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was, Ezra Charles was his toughest fighter. Toughest opponent. Yeah. Now, how would Rocky have fared fighting closer to his weight class? As you know, he was really he fought, like I said, he fought more under 180 than he did over 190. Okay? Now once again, the Never Was is completely wrong on his fantasy about Great American Fight. Fantasy 1. Okay? Rocky Marciano fought nothing but light heavyweight. That's a fantasy. Joe Louis was 37 and not the fighter he was when he fought Rocky, but he was a complete, genuine heavyweight. Jersey Joe Walcott was a legitimate heavyweight, as was Don Cockell. The truth is, it was not a good era for heavyweight. Sonny Liston had not yet become a contender, and Foley and Cleveland Williams were also several years away. But Rocky fought the best heavyweights and best fighters who were there to fight. What was he supposed to do? Okay. He fought the best contenders and heavyweights that were there to fight. Okay. Fantasy number 2. Ezra Charles was shot when he fought Marciano. What a joke. Ezzard Charles, the greatest light heavyweight who ever lived, was only 32 when he fought Rocky and still healthy when he fought Rocky. A natural light heavyweight who fought as a middleweight before World War II. Charles was dominant in every class he fought in. It is not only ranked as the best light heavyweight ever, but also ranked in the top 20 of the best heavyweights. Ezzard Charles was named the Ring Fighter of the Year in 1949 and 1950. He was also inducted into the Ring Boxing Hall of Fame in 1970, the World Boxing Hall of Fame in 1983, and the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990. He was named the greatest light heavyweight of all time by the Ring magazine in 1994 and 2002, and the 11th greatest heavyweight of all time by the Ring in 1998. He was also named the 13th best fighter pound for pound of the last 80 years by the Ring in 2002. Well, how was he shot when he fought Rocky? I think the first fight is 52. When he was named Fighter of the Year, what, 51? Let's see. He was only 32 when he fought him. Okay. Yeah. Fighter of the Year for 49 and 50. He only fought Rocky a couple years later, so how in the world would he be shot? That's a fantasy, right? Now, fantasy number 3. That Ezzard Charles' natural weight in his aging body was 185. William Detloff, in the biography of Boxing Life Ezzard Charles, says Ezzard had to stuff himself to make weight to appear a true heavyweight, when he in fact was not. Okay. Fantasy number 4. Nino Valdez would be a cruiserweight today. Nino Valdez, a Cuban heavyweight, was 6 foot 3 inches tall and weighed a rock solid 210. That's heavyweight all day. He was a heavyweight then and would be a heavyweight now. Not a supersized heavyweight with today's nutrition and workout routines. You know, with today's nutrition and workout routines, instead of being 210, he would probably be 225 to 230 before today, with all the modern technology, right? Somebody 210 would be 225, 230. Rocky would be over 200 nowadays with the nutritionists and all that kind of stuff they got, right? Fantasy number 5. I guess this is the last one. This is really a fantasy. Bob Baker would be a cruiserweight today. Bob Baker was 6 foot 2 and fought at a rock solid 220. How would he be a cruiserweight today? And with today's nutrition and stuff, he'd be 235 to 240. Okay? So no. But okay, yeah, we're gonna cut it short now. It's time. But we only had one more. Let's do that. Fantasy number 6. The Never Was claim. It said Jack Dempsey had no one to fight in the 1920s till Gene Tunney showed up. Every boxing historian of note and everyone who knows boxing at all believes that Harry Wills, the great black heavyweight, the Black Panther, deserved the title shot he never got during that exact time. And it wasn't Dempsey. The United States government blocked the fight. They told Tex Rickard, the leading promoter of the day, to not make any mixed race heavyweight title fights. So Dempsey did not duck it. But he wasn't the only. He had plenty of great heavyweights to fight at that time, right? And during Dempsey's title reign, public pressure mounted for him to defend against Wills. In a poll conducted by more than 500 newspapers, Wills was picked as the boxer the public most wanted to see Dempsey fight. Wills got 131,000 votes, more than anyone else, including Tunney. But the promoters refused to put the fight on. Now, while Dempsey himself was not a racist, he fought black fighters on the way up as happily as he fought white fighters. The system was racist. Okay? Promoters believed Wills might defeat either Dempsey or Tunney and block them from a title shot. And the government believed it too, and they saw what happened when Jack Johnson beat James J. Jeffries. We had race riots across the country. 20 people were killed, hundreds were injured. So yeah. And those are the real facts. Okay. And we're gonna get out of here. Let's Do Boxing is up next. Hope everybody enjoyed the show today. We'll be back tomorrow with another one. Okay. Mike Mazik, What's the Legend, Bruce Gas, Technique, Mike Rim, Thomas Hill, Miss Cat. Appreciate everybody. We'll be back tomorrow with another cast, Sports the Box Historians. Because if it's Monday through Friday at 2 p.m., it's the Box Historian bringing you all that boxing history. Everybody have a great afternoon.